Generally speaking, celebrities aren't known for being super faithful to their partners, but back in the 1970s, the cheating was often very public, and sometimes things got really messy. Jack Nicholson and Anjelica Huston started seeing each other soon after she moved to Hollywood in 1973. Despite their 14-year age gap, the 21-year-old actress quickly moved into Nicholson's LA home. They were together for 17 years, but they never got married. It was an open secret that Nicholson cheated on Huston with a variety of women. In a 1980 interview with People, Nicholson admitted, "Most of the credit for our wonderfully successful relationship has to do with her flexibility." He wasn't talking about yoga. In a 2025 interview with The Guardian, Huston let fly with her opinion about Nicholson's cheating, explaining, "I loved him. I think in the world that I was living in, it wasn't disrespectful. It was how he was, and it wasn't so personal. I think as soon as I clocked that, it was all right. I knew how to protect myself. It didn't make me happy, but I knew what I was doing."
I sort of handled it on a day-to-day basis, and sometimes I didn't handle it so well at the time.
Ultimately, Huston, who's been open about her fertility struggles, dumped Nicholson in 1989 when she found out he'd gotten actress Rebecca Broussard pregnant while they were making The Two Jakes.
One time, I did get satisfaction.
Mick Jagger met Bianca Perez Mora Messiest after a Rolling Stones concert in Paris in 1970. Within a year, they were married and having a baby. Despite their near-instant connection, though, Bianca was under no illusions about her future as the wife of a Rolling Stone. Much later, in an interview with the New York Daily News, she confessed, "My marriage was over on my wedding day." Mick and Bianca were the it couple of the 70s rock and roll universe, but it was no secret that they weren't faithful to each other. Speaking with People in 1977, Bianca put it bluntly, saying, "Mick screws many but has few affairs." Based on her comment, it appears Bianca wasn't bothered by her husband hooking up with groupies while on tour. But in 1978, after she discovered that Mick had started seeing model and actress Jerry Hall, she filed for divorce, putting an end to their whirlwind romance.
I was very impressed with how high Mick could jump in the air. I'd never seen anyone jump that high.
It's also worth noting that Bianca also cheated on Mick during their tumultuous marriage. According to the Daily Mail, in a 1973 letter, screenwriter Terry Sutherland revealed that Bianca had a thing with Ryan O'Neal. Sutherland quite eloquently wrote, "I walked into the room one afternoon to find them going at it like a pair of maddened warthogs." Bianca seemed unfazed by the rumors of her cheating, telling People, "I have had very few affairs. I could never have one without telling Mick." Carly Simon was one of the women Jagger cheated on Bianca with during their marriage, but before that, she was pursued by actor Warren Beatty. Simon has admitted that the second verse of her 1972 hit, "You're So Vain," is about Beatty, though the actor probably thinks the whole song is about him.
Carly Simon wrote the song "You're So Vain" about you.
How would I know?
Simon talked about her attraction to Beatty in her 2015 memoir, Boys in the Trees, writing, "What a glorious specimen of man. He put them all to shame, if looks and charm were what you were after. He homed in like a tracking dog." Beatty reportedly tried to convince Simon not to marry James Taylor, but she didn't listen. After her fling with Beatty, Simon and Taylor were married for over 10 years, from 1972 to 1983. When Ally MacGraw signed on to star in the 1972 film The Getaway, opposite Steve McQueen, she was married to film producer Robert Evans, the guy behind movies like Rosemary's Baby and The Godfather. Evans had to convince MacGraw to do The Getaway. She was hesitant, mostly because she knew what would happen. In her 1991 memoir, Moving Pictures, an autobiography, MacGraw wrote, "I was obsessed with Steve from the moment he stepped into my world. There was never enough air for me to breathe to change that feeling."
I'm driving up to the prison and I get out of the car and I go to myself, oh my God, that's Steve McQueen.
Their affair started up as soon as they arrived on location in Texas, and it became a major talking point leading up to the movie's release. MacGraw and Evans divorced near the end of 1972, and she married McQueen in July 1973. But despite their passionate love affair, their marriage was not a success. MacGraw basically stopped acting while she was married to McQueen because he didn't want her to work. In 2022, she told Closer Weekly, "I played cook, cleaning lady, simple woman to the hilt. For a while, it worked and we were happy." By 1977, MacGraw was ready to return to acting, but when she told McQueen, he filed for divorce. The couple officially parted ways in 1978, just 2 years before he would pass away from lung cancer. Clint Eastwood and Sondra Locke were both married when they starred in the 1976 Western The Outlaw Josie Wales. Locke, though, was married to her gay best friend, whom she'd known since she was a teenager, so she was very open to a romance with Eastwood. Throughout the 70s and 80s, the couple made several films together, but it wasn't great for Locke's career. In a 1997 interview with The Independent, she explained, "If you were in Clint Eastwood movies, you were in the Clint Eastwood movie business. You weren't part of Hollywood. This became clear early on. People stopped calling. They automatically assumed I was working exclusively with Clint. This wasn't too terrible while Locke and Eastwood were together, but when they split, her career was dead in the water, and the breakup wasn't pretty either. While Locke was directing the 1990 movie Impulse, Eastwood kicked her out of the Bel Air home he'd bought for her. This led to a dramatic legal battle in which Locke fought for palimony. She won the initial court case, coming away with one of Eastwood's houses, $450,000 in unpaid wages, and a production and directing deal with Warner Brothers, which included a $1.5 million paycheck and an office on the studio lot. It was a landmark settlement for women, except that it wasn't. In 1996, Locke discovered that the cash from her $1.5 million development deal came directly from Eastwood. It explained why the more than 30 projects she proposed to the studio were turned down. Furious and frustrated, Locke sued Eastwood again, for fraud this time. They eventually settled out of court, but Locke's career never recovered. John Lennon and Yoko Ono always did things their own way, and his affair with their 22-year-old assistant, May Pang, was no exception. John and Yoko were having problems, so in a weirdly proactive move, Yoko tried to set him up with Pang. Weird, right? Even Pang thought so.
She was a very good assistant.
In a 2022 interview with Variety, Pang shared, "Yes, Yoko did approach me, and I thought it was insane. I told her I wasn't interested at all. They were having problems in their marriage. They actually weren't talking to each other. But John spontaneously decided to go to LA on his own and asked me to go with him. Yoko wasn't even aware we had gone until after we left." This trip to Los Angeles was the beginning of Lennon's Lost Weekend, an 18-month period during which he worked as a solo artist, got into scrapes, mostly due to drinking, and had an affair with Pang. By 1975, John and Yoko reconciled and stayed together until his death in 1980. George Harrison and Eric Clapton had been best friends and frequent collaborators since the 1960s, but their friendship was put to the test when Clapton fell in love with Harrison's wife, Pattie Boyd. Throughout the early 70s, Clapton was writing love letters to Boyd. She even inspired his iconic song, Layla. When asked about Clapton's letters in a 2022 interview with People, Boyd said, "I ignored them at first, but things were going wrong with George and me. We were going in different directions, so it was difficult to try and maintain this loving, harmonious relationship with George while Eric was also writing to me." In 1974, not long after Boyd learned about Harrison's affair with, get this, Ringo's wife, Maureen Starkey, Boyd left. They divorced in 1977, which meant that Clapton finally had a shot at the girl he'd been obsessing over for years. Just weeks after her divorce from Harrison, Boyd and Clapton started dating, and they got married in 1979. It didn't last, though. Clapton cheated on Boyd with various women during the 80s, and they divorced in 1989. Later, while reflecting on the love triangle in an interview with Gold Radio, Boyd shared what she thought was the truth behind their relationship, admitting, "Eric just wanted what George had." Donald Sutherland was married to his second wife, Shirley Douglas, when he signed on to star in the 1971 movie Clute. The film also featured Jane Fonda, who reportedly seduced Sutherland before shooting began. Throughout his life, Sutherland was adamant that Fonda made the first move, telling the Mirror, "One day, she made it very clear, via a somewhat provocative suggestion, that I should come home with her, and I just said, okay." Sutherland and Fonda's affair sounds like it was super hot. According to the Mirror, he once stated, "She had, at the time, the most beautiful breasts in the world." At the time, the fling ended Sutherland's marriage, but their relationship didn't last long. In 1972, just a year after Clute was released, Sutherland tied the knot with French-Canadian actress Francine Rosset. They were married until his death in 2024. The world couldn't get enough of Elvis Presley in the late 50s and early 60s, and his relationship with his wife, Priscilla, was relentlessly scrutinized in the media because of their 10-year age gap and the fact that Elvis pursued her when she was just 14 years old. There were always red flags in their relationship, so it wasn't surprising when things started crumbling in the late 60s and early 70s. During this time, Elvis reportedly didn't want Priscilla with him on tour or when he was working in LA or Las Vegas. That's because he was having multiple affairs. Speaking with Sunday Night in 2018, Priscilla said, "He wasn't faithful, not that he had someone special, but when you're in the entertainment business, there is always that, and I tried to turn my back to that, but I just didn't want to share him."
You lived his life. You honestly didn't have your own life. You lived his life.
Eventually, Priscilla turned the tables and cheated on Elvis with her karate teacher, which led to her leaving Presley in 1972. Farrah Fawcett's affair with Ryan O'Neal began in 1979 when, ironically, her then-husband, actor Lee Majors, asked O'Neal to check on his wife while he was away on location. Big mistake. Instead of checking to see if Fawcett was okay, O'Neal decided to take her on a date. Fawcett later told the Los Angeles Times, "We sat and kissed until our lips were bloody." In an interview with Life magazine, she added, "I was so overwhelmed by this mental and physical attraction for him that I didn't think about anything except what was happening right there." O'Neal felt the same way as Fawcett. In an interview with the New York Daily News, he said, "I lost interest in nearly everything but this woman. For the first time in my life, something took precedence over myself."
Are you going to marry Ryan O'Neal?
I don't know.
By all accounts, their romance was electric and passionate. They stayed together for 17 years, but never married, and in 1997, they broke up. 4 years later, they reconnected when O'Neal was diagnosed with leukemia. Fawcett herself was diagnosed with cancer in 2006, and O'Neal stuck by her side until her death in 2009. Reportedly, O'Neal asked Fawcett to marry him just days before she passed away.